Truth and Tea with the Urban Evangelist. Welcome to Truth and Tea with the Urban Evangelist.
Hello there, I'm the Urban Evangelist and welcome back to Truth and Tea. You know that it is the podcast that filters every single conversation through the lens of faith. Today we are tackling the topic of surviving and thriving campus life. For most students, college or university is one of the first times they'll be living on their own. Many of the rules, the guidelines, and the curfews that they had are suddenly gone, and as a college student, they're left having to make life choices on their own. Globally today, 7 out of 10 high school graduates immediately go on to college, but 30% will never get to the second year, and almost half will not have graduated even 6 years later. Many who graduate move right back into their parents' homes, assuming little responsibility and armed with very little ambition in life or for Christ. With so many distractions, how can young people today pursue Christ at university where there's so many choices and the majority are simply not living for Christ? Joining me today is a norm redefiner. She's a pastor, she's a mother, she's a wife. She's just an all-rounded personality and I love her to bits. Her name is Perpetual Paswani. Welcome to Truth and Tea, Perpetual.
Thank you for having me.
You look amazing. I'm happy to have you.
You too. You look really nice.
Thank you so much. So when I was at school, I had a classmate called Perpetual, and we used to call her Pepsi for short. So I'm
People
wondering,
call me Pepsi.
or do they now?
Yes,
Okay, okay,
Pepsi.
all
Yeah.
right.
Or Pepe. I don't like it much. But
Yeah. There's something about the Pepe. I'll try and stick to the full name, or if I call you Pepsi,
okay.
you won't catch any feelings, right?
No.
Okay, all right. So we are tackling campus life and everything that comes with it.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly ask, did you survive or did you thrive on campus?
I like to think of it as grace sustained me through the campus life. And the reason I say so is because I was a mess on campus. You know, like every time I talk to people, I tell them, you know, those kids that sometimes your parents will say, don't be friends with that one. That was me.
Really?
And so,
I can't marry that though. But I guess the beauty of grace, right?
Yes,
I can't marry the two.
So yeah, that was me on campus. And honestly, every time I think of my life at campus, I shudder to think where I would be today had I not encountered the Lord. So yeah, I'm excited for what God is doing through this platform, and I hope that many people will receive their Rhema word.
Absolutely, I have no doubt. And like you say, you know, you're a norm redefiner. Yes. And part of the conversation that we're having here is just to revisit some of these norms that have really just encapsulated what campus life looks like, because nobody questions some things or nobody bats an eyelid when you hear of certain things happening on campus life. And that's what I'd like to delve into with you. So like, I'm taking you back now into high school. You've written your exams.
Yes.
You've gotten your results, acceptance letter.
Yes.
Where did you go and what was your expectation of what campus would be like, both academically and socially?
Okay, so I went to high school in Eastern Province, Katete Girls, and every time would be coming back home by bus, would drive past Unza.
Okay.
And in my heart, I would always say silently that I'm gonna come here one day. And so I had an expectation that obviously there will be freedom, like I'll be free to do whatever I want. And those we had heard of who had gone to campus would say, you know, nobody forces you to go to class. It's all up to you. And it felt exciting to have that level of freedom. Because I'm coming from a military home.
Wow.
So mom
Who's
and
military?
Both.
Both?
So my dad retired, but my mom is still serving. So every time I thought of campus, I'll be like, yeah, nobody would tell me what time to come home, what to do, when to do it. So I had that in terms of my expectation socially. But academically, I had come to a place where I was very confident and I'm a smart person. So I wasn't really thinking about it. But I now know that if I had taken into account the fact that I needed to put in a bit more work, maybe I would have turned out differently at the end of the 4 years. Yeah.
I see. You mentioned that you went to high school in Katete,
Yes.
Eastern Province.
Yes.
Is that where you grew up?
No, I grew up in Lusaka,
Okay.
but my grandmother was in Katete.
All right.
So I then went there.
Was it boarding school?
Yes, it was boarding school.
So there was already a bit of that independence in the sense that you were at a boarding school.
Yes, to an extent.
To an extent.
Because my mom would call every single time we had like opportunities to be with our phones, and my grandmother was in the province.
Yeah.
I also went to a school that belonged to a church that my grandmother was actively serving in. So I didn't exactly have the same level of freedom, but yeah, we could say there was a level of freedom.
So now you're a mafresha. A moma, exactly. And I would like to believe the gold rush still exists.
Oh yes, yes. Oh my goodness.
Talk me through that, please.
Okay, so
and this is funny that I'm asking you this. I mean, it's a podcast. I'm asking her about a gold rush, and her husband is in the background. So I'm curious to see how she's going to tackle this one.
Okay, so my husband and I talk a lot. He knows everything, so
that's good.
It's not uncomfortable. The gold rush. So first day of campus, like registration, my mom took me and she stayed the whole day with me, like through the queues.
Whole day.
Yes, through the queues. I'm so
I
grateful
have
for her.
never, ever heard of a mother staying the queues.
No, she
at
stayed
Unza.
the whole time. So if we needed to be in one queue, because I don't know how they're doing it now, then you had to queue up for everything.
Yeah, they still
so
do.
we had to get there as early as 6. And so, but I could tell the seniors, the guys just walking around and literally just pointing out certain girls. So from the first day we knew that, okay, these are the preferred girls. There was a certain kind of girl that was liked by the third years. People that were serving maybe in the student union, you could tell because they were all there and they were doing favors to these people.
I see.
And so yeah, first day I was like, oh, okay, so people are getting attention and you're feeling some type of way, like, okay, is there anything wrong with me? Am I not cool enough? So first day already questioning if, okay, how am I going to do the next few years here? If already the cream, you know, the cream of the cream have been identified. So yeah, the gold rush is very much real.
Yeah.
In the night, you know, you could see for people who went to the library, you could see the third years just passing around where the freshers will be, you know, trying to offer help. But you know that, okay, at the end of the day,
offering you, as they call it, data.
Data, you know,
data,
that's what you want to study, you know, no, I want to do DS, I want to do law. Oh no, there's a Masad who can help you with that. So yeah.
You've taken me right back to campus. Now, I asked this question just for the benefit of a young lady that could be watching this podcast. You said there was a preferred type of girl that they were looking for. What did she look like?
She looked like a supermodel.
Wow.
You know, like the pretty girls, fair skin, they dressed a particular way. And when I was in first year, of course, I did feel some type of way because obviously certain people are getting attention. But now when we were in the orientation team, because in third year, I took part in the orientation of the first years, I could still tell now third years amongst us who were eyeing these youngsters, right? So like there was one particular girl, up to now when I see her on social media, I'm like, child, God saved you and you don't even know. She was on everybody's radar.
Wow.
You know, and so, yeah, they looked for a particular kind of girl, pretty, you know. Yeah, I think all I would say is she looked like a model, yeah.
It's funny that they were using the exact same criteria as third-year students that was used on them as first-year students.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
that was quite interesting. Just reminds me of the fact that everywhere we go, there seems to be a system of evaluation, what a standard of beauty is. I mean, it could even be standard of brains or what excellence looks like to the next person. And you get to a place where you're fresh, and I would assume the pressure to conform would be very high.
Exactly.
Or at least to try and look like what is, well, for lack of a better term, what seems to be the approved standard according to certain people.
Yeah, and every time I think of it, now that I know what I know, is that the world always has a system of picking the best. So sometimes people will think I've been picked because I'm the prettiest, but sometimes it's because your light just shines brighter. So because your light shines bright, people will notice you. It's the same system Nebuchadnezzar used with the children of God to say, the ones that look like this, the ones that are intelligent, the ones that can grasp concepts, those are the ones we want. And I feel like even when the enemy is now going into spaces where you're gathering the brainiest of the children in the nation, he's always looking out for now which ones will we destroy so that their impact is, significantly or at some points just completely shattered.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Amazing. Whichever way you look at it, God is looking for someone to partner with. So is the devil.
Exactly.
And even just saying that, I'm not really Christian, that's still taking a stand for whose destiny you're pushing, whose agenda rather you're pushing.
Exactly. Yeah. We are always pushing an agenda, whether we acknowledge it or not. And I think that's the danger in thinking, I'm just going to be in the middle. I won't be too fired up, but also I won't be too evil. We are pushing an agenda on whichever side we're on. So it's important to choose whose agenda you're going to perpetuate.
Let's park there for some time now, the agenda. Okay, so now you're done with the cues with your mom. She left at some point that day, right?
Yes. Because now we're looking for accommodation. I hope the accommodation situation has changed.
The student to room ratio is still atrocious, unfortunately. Yeah. When I got on campus, thankfully I was one of the few in my intake. When I say intake, from those I came from high school with, I was one of the few that was actually offered a room. And I remember my first room was at a big flat, what they would call the big flat.
Oh, the big flat.
Yes.
I was a squattee in the big flat.
Wow.
It's not glorious.
And the one that I was given was the one right behind the ruins. So I literally felt like I was living in Monk Square in the ruins. Those ones.
Opposite the clinic.
Yes. So it was crazy, but it's not my story. It's your story I'm interested in. So you found accommodation on campus. Okay.
I'm squatting with a fellow first year in the big flat.
All right.
And so, we're now figuring it out. There's lots of noise on campus. I think for the whole week, the monks will be welcoming you. Fresh hour, all these crazy things. And you're just fascinated because it's very new. But also now you begin to see how they are hunting for these girls. By the corners, they're coming out of the boarding house or you're coming out of the big flat. There's a guy randomly there standing, And so it was a very different dynamic for me, overwhelming, but yeah.
That's the social aspect. What did you apply to study in first year?
I wanted to study law.
Okay.
I wanted to study law.
So School of Humanities.
School of Humanities,
all right.
Yes. I wanted to study law. But if I'm to be completely honest, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea.
Why did you want to study law?
When I applied at first, my grades were really good. I was accepted both in natural sciences and humanities.
Okay.
Then one of my older cousins came home and said, friend, you're going to fail. Don't even think about med. I know you're playful, so just go for the easier one. Go for humanities. And so I remember telling my mom saying, I don't want to do medicine anymore. I want to do law. And she was furious. She said, you're going to the school where you will be accepted. I don't care if it's natural sciences or humanities. I think that was one of the few times I prayed to say, Lord, let them reject me in NS. Or I prayed for rejection. And so I got the acceptance letter for humanities and ended up in humanities. Yeah.
I asked that question because I think you heard the stats I shared in the beginning, how 30% of the first years don't even make it to second year. And I saw the casualties at campus, especially in the natural sciences. And half the time when you have conversations with your fellow students, they'll tell you, I didn't even want to get into natural sciences, but my parents had this dream for me. And so that's why I asked you what drove your school selection. Yeah.
For me, I wanted to be natural sciences because there was a season where my mother was very sick and I was basically her primary caregiver. I was, I think, 14. And sometimes things got crazy, like where you have to do things that a child shouldn't do.
Right.
And so from that place, I said, I'm going to be a medical doctor. I want to help people. And so when I then changed my mind, I think my mom didn't take it very well. I didn't tell her why I wanted to go to NS, but I think she believed that I could do it. And so when I just chickened out, I think she didn't take it well. When it comes to what I wanted to study, my parents didn't really push me for anything, but I feel like I was still confused. Even when I was in natural sciences, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it didn't help that then on first day of orientation, you are in a room, maybe 1,000 of you, the vice chancellor speaks to you. Nobody is really guiding you to say, okay, where do we take you from here?
Yes.
It's just like, okay, figure out. I remember how we picked our courses. If I think if somebody had guided me to say, you don't put PA on here because points are hard to get, maybe the story would have been different. So there were so many factors affecting where you end up eventually.
I fully appreciate what you've just said. Nobody is guiding you, nobody is directing you. And that's where I made my first mistake, major mistake on campus, because when I was applying, I got very good grades as well. I had 6 points in grade 12. And I go to apply and there was no government forms, the application forms. And I was told, you can use self-sponsorship forms. It doesn't really matter because you still be offered a bursary anyways because your grades are so good. And so I applied using a self-sponsorship form and I was accepted under that. Now, poor me, I'm being raised by a single mom who already was struggling, to pay my high school fees. And then you've been accepted into UNZA as 100% self-sponsored student when I easily qualified for a bursary.
Wow. And I really don't know what can be done about that, because I'll go back a little bit, even how we picked our courses. My friend called her brother who was studying economics to consult which courses would pick. So we all four of us, me and my friends, we entered the courses that this guy told us to enter. So you can imagine the confusion. But now even like the bursary where they say apply whichever way, and there's always information in the grapevine that sort of misleads you. Do this, you're going to end up here. Do this, you're going to end up here. So I totally relate to an extent.
So first year kicks off now. You're going to lecture theaters, very different style and setup from classrooms. How did you go through your first year academically?
First year academically, we are trying to find our feet. Obviously, the lectures are different from the classroom. But I think quickly I fell into this space where I thought, because nobody is pressuring me, I've got this. So missing class, sorry, mom.
Where were you when you were missing? Were you just lying in?
Sleeping. Because people say, you can, what were they calling it? You can gun. Yeah, so you can gun and you'll be okay. If you're smart, don't worry about it. And it didn't help that, in the boarding house, there's so many different people. And unfortunately, some of those people are voices that are not grounded. So they'll tell you, inen masala cha bemu, what do they call it? The big flat. I'm always in the big flat, but look at my grades. So you follow that advice. But by God's grace, I think the best grades I ever got at UNZA were in first year.
After that, okay.
Yeah.
And you made the cut now into law school?
No, I did not. I missed law school by a point.
Wow.
Yeah, I missed law school.
That must have really hurt.
It really, really hurt. It hurts. You see people that you were with. And I think most of the people that I was with on campus would be shocked to hear I even wanted to do law. Because honestly, I wasn't a serious person. But it hurt. I was discouraged, honestly. You think of, okay, should I stay back a year and try to make the points? What do I do? But then I also acknowledged that, finances were not going to allow. So at that point, I just now started going through the motions, like you're on just autopilot. You go to class, you do what it takes, and by the time you're in third year, you just want to get a credit,
Right.
or better, but
You gotta
honestly,
get out of there.
yeah, so that's how it went.
So there's this thing where, like, I mean, first year is where you kind of take on courses that are leading you to where you think you want to go.
Yes.
But then there's a sieving process based on the grades that you
Yes,
get, right?
yes.
So where did you end up when you didn't make it into law school?
I ended up in public administration.
Okay,
So
okay.
there's law school, and I think there's PA, then there's DS. So
Yeah.
I ended up in public administration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing, because I ended up in DS, Development Studies, and that wasn't my first selection. So I went onto campus telling myself I'll become an economist.
Wow.
Because of my dad. We have a great relationship now, but growing up, I mean, he didn't raise me. And so I felt that if I become someone of note in society, maybe I'll get his attention. But nobody told me that for you to be an economist, you have to take on mathematics. And I had my first arrear in first year.
Wow.
And I remember, you know, getting that silent on my transcript. And I went and sat by the Goma Lakes and just cried.
Yeah,
and that's how I ended up in development studies. So I'm sharing my story because I know that this is the story of so many on campus today.
Yeah, and even like fellow students, they really just belittle you when they see that silent
Yeah.
or hear. So it doesn't make it easy. Yeah, I absolutely understand that.
Okay, so now we've touched a bit on your academic profile. Social life. Let's talk about the social life.
First of all, I think the biggest mistake I ever made was participating in Miss Unza.
Ah, okay.
Believe it or not, I was skinny one time.
I love to hear that.
So when I was in second year, and now, you know, just trying to push to get my own room because I'm tired of squatting.
Yeah.
One of the things we were taught is like, you know, Miss Unza gets a room.
Okay.
So I was very confident because in high school, I was Miss at my school, and then I was Miss of the province. So I was coming in and like, I got this.
Upcoming model.
Right up my alley, right? And so I take part in Miss Unza, and I don't win. You know, I was the first princess. And I think I got attention after that. I got attention, and because I didn't know who I was.
Right.
I was the sort of person who would be one person if I'm with a certain clique, another person, if I'm with the serious kids, I'm serious. If I'm with the unserious kids, I'm unserious. So I absolutely did not know myself. And so I didn't know how to handle the attention. And I think that's where much of the trouble started socially.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by attention, what are we talking about?
Oh, the boys, you know, they think you're pretty because the whole, how can I put it? The time running up to the final pageant night, right? There's so many things you do. There's a pre-launch where it was done at the club behind ZRA, where they used to host the street party.
The cage. Not the cage.
I don't know what it's called.
It has to, guys, help here. Don't pretend. I'm putting everybody on the
that
spot.
one called Zenon? I think it's
No,
sorry, guys.
Zenon was in Northmead.
Oh, see, thank God, I'm really
I used
saved.
to club. I'm not even going to pretend.
Yeah.
I used to
Hollywood, yes.
Hollywood.
There was a pre-launch at Hollywood, Hollywood City. And so there was a pre-launch at Hollywood City, then there was another pre-launch at Zenon. So I think the pre-launch was always meant to draw students in, right? And so the boys see you, oh, they think you're now cool, you're nice, everyone wants to be with you. Okay, not really everyone, but you're getting attention away from the usual. So yeah, that's when I started dating somebody who was of a different faith compared to me. Yeah. That's when the drama started.
So before we get to that, what faith were you, and what kind of faith did you go with onto campus?
I was raised in a traditional church, and then I was part of the charismatics movement. So I had an idea of the Lord and His workings, but I believe that my faith was dependent on who I was with. So if there's a move of God, you know, amazing things are happening, I'm on fire. But when I'm by myself, I can't defend the conviction.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now the trouble starts here, doing all these events, or little series of events leading up to Miss Onza.
Yes.
And then you got First Princess.
Yes.
Was there any prize for that?
They gave me a phone.
Okay,
They gave me a
okay.
phone, but we never got the rooms. Not even the Miss got the room.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And then they
That
gave
was
us,
a scam.
yeah, they gave us a bit of money, but we heard that wasn't even all of it. So it was just a mess.
Yeah.
We never ever got those rooms.
Why did the trouble start?
I believe with the exposure, I was then challenged to find who I was, but I didn't have time. So I believe that when a person or a child knows who they are, when the Bible talks about training up children in the way they should go, right? I feel like part of the training should be in how we see ourselves.
Yeah.
And even if that is not there, we then have to respond to the teachings we receive. So I never responded to the teachings I received at church, at the charismatic. So when I now started dating somebody who was not a Christian, I didn't flinch. I didn't feel bad. I wasn't even asking of the scripture that says we should not be equally yoked. I was just doing it because I like him, he's cute. We vibe, right? And so now when this person tells me, look, I'm going to destroy your life, right? I'm not good for you. I'm like, oh, he's a bad boy. Nice, we can do life together.
Did he actually say that?
He told me straight up. Says,
Why
"I'm
don't
not
we
good for you."
listen though, hey?
I think it's what the lies we tell ourselves.
That I can change him.
I can change this person.
Or he'll change for me.
And he even came for Chi Alpha one night. He's like, you've been bothering me about this church. Let's go. He sat through the whole thing. Afterwards, I was like, how was it? He's like, very weird, but okay. And so we went on our business. And afterwards, now, when I realized that I didn't even care about God, you know, I knew that, okay, here I'm gone. But still, I did nothing. Every time I'd want to go to church, I'd pass by his room because it was on the way to church. I would not make it to church. And still that didn't bother me, you know. And so I believe now being away from my faith, being away from a community that can help me make better decisions caused so much drama.
Yeah. I was talking to someone last week who raised a very good point that when you abandon your faith, there's this fruit that starts to show for it.
Yes, yes.
So obviously you're not going to church as often as you could have. The heart also starts to get hardened towards the things of God.
Exactly.
And anything else that you experienced that began to show you that, okay, this is fruit of something that's a bit off in my life right now?
I got to a place where, honestly, I couldn't tell what was right and wrong. You know, if we're going out, we'll go to the club, end up in a fight, it's normal.
You would
Couples
fight?
argue.
Oh, I thought you meant like physical fight.
Fighting physically. I remember this one instance, I even shared it on my page, where this boy, because he was a boy then, dumped me. And then we went to the club with my friends, and I don't know, up to now, I don't know why, but I was with my friends, and then he passed where I was and said, hi, how are you doing? I said, I'm okay. Then I noticed that he's with another girl. That ticked me off. But because I was a bit drunk, I decided I'm going to fight, right? I don't know if anyone has ever been drunk in here and tried to fight.
Drunk, yes. Fighting, perhaps
I tried
not,
to swing, and I went all the way to the floor. And then because I didn't have strength to come up, I was now just on the floor in trance, crying, you know. And I think that moment I realized, honestly, I'm a wreck. Something must give.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I didn't get into fights. I was the peacemaker. I was the one who would try and get my friends out of fights. So I had this friend that when she, got high, we use that term from alcohol. You can get high from a lot of other things. I'll be very specific, from alcohol. She suddenly, had this boldness, and she just thought she could take on anybody. But she was very weak, so I was the one who would rescue her half the time.
I was that friend, the one who gets into fights
because
I feel bored now.
Right.
Pick on the big girls. I'm like, you can't do anything. Was that me? Yes, you get us beaten up. So yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Okay. So clubbing, drinking, wrong relationships. I remember one of the very bizarre things that I encountered, even in first year, was cohabiting.
It happened a lot. It happened a lot.
Yes, I mean, as fun as it
And
was.
sleeping over
Right,
in a room
right.
with other boys.
Right. For me, that was crazy, even for campus life, the cohabiting. But were these things that you encountered as well? Like, did you come across?
I came across that, and I hate to say it, I did it also. You know, at some point I fought with my friends and I didn't have where to stay. But because I didn't want to lose the, you know, the freedom, I then started, you know, staying with this person who was of a different faith with me.
Okay.
What made me come out of that place was when we had a really big fight.
Yeah.
He broke my phone because he was cheating. And then, you know, like people came, come and see your friends are fighting, come see your friends are fighting. And one of the guys came and he was walking me to my friend's room now. And he was like, no, you guys are going to be okay. Your relationship is going to make it. And I looked at him, I said, look, I want you to be honest. If I were your young sister, would you encourage me to continue dating this guy? He said, no. That moment right there, I was like, I need to fight for myself. Whatever it takes, I need to fight for myself. I need to at least get some sort of dignity to my name. Yeah.
And that was just a moment of reckoning.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it didn't end there, because I think sometimes people feel like when you make the decision, you won't be tempted to go back. You know, the decision is one thing. The work to completely break away from these 3 years of toxicity is a completely different package. So I had to consistently say no. Because even when I now became born again and I was a member of Set Apart, this guy came back and said, look, I'm not going to mess with your faith. I just want to be with you. And honestly, I was tempted because we've got history, and I'm thinking, so many people say things like, it's better with somebody you don't know, with somebody you know, because you know each other, you know how bad it can get, right? And so I was faced with this decision to make: do I keep on with this person who I know, or choose to trust God? And I honestly couldn't find my peace in making up again. So yeah, even when you say, I'm going to change, I'm going to stop, the work to get to your freedom is a completely different package.
I like that you bring it up, because I think campus is that place that, you know, connects the bridge, or it is the bridge rather, from your childhood to your at least early adulthood.
Yes.
And I think when you're there and when you're in it, some of the decisions are driven purely by the fact that you think, okay, look, when we get out of this place, you know, we'll get into society. These are the people that, I mean, you look around you, these are people that I might work with at some point. This is the guy that I might end up with for the rest of my life. We could get married, because you see those that have gone ahead of you. These are the decisions that they're making. Some people that are married today met on campus. So we really are making life choices. On campus.
We are. And I wish people could put weight on these things, because there are certain decisions that forever change your life. You know, there are certain decisions that will take years to heal from. And I think when students are on campus, they're focused on being the cool kids. They're focused on being the ones that everyone looks up to. In this age of social media, I've seen a lot of content creators who are students. And I wanted to say, when you do these things, are you accounting for the next 5 years? And I wish this is a conversation someone had with me in first year, to say, okay, you're going to date somebody who's not of your faith. He cheats on you, he insults you, he does all these things. Are you thinking about yourself 5 years from now? Are you going to be proud of yourself? Because away from that, there are grown men who go to campus, park their cars there and pick up people's children. And because the girls want the latest iPhone, they want the hair, they want everything, they go towards, you know, dating these older men, you know. And so even if you're not dating older men, the person you're with now, because for me, my comfort was like, I don't have a sugar daddy, I'm okay. I'm dating someone my age. But the damage is the same, really. If it's costing you peace from deep within, if you're losing who you are as a child of God, it's definitely not worth it.
Chi Alpha.
Yes.
How did you stumble into that?
I saw posters on campus.
Okay.
You know what? I went to campus to talk about LFP. I saw the posters. I'm like, I'm glad they're still doing this. Because literally, and my friends and I used to say Chi Alpha.
Guilty of that.
And just I'm like, no. The members would get upset and so would say it to make them upset. So Chi Alpha, you know, why not Chi Alpha? They're like, no, it's Chi Alpha. So I said, oh, you know, I saw a poster and I think Prophetess Isabel Ngambi was coming to campus that night and she was speaking and I said, you know, something about this woman I like, you know, let me go. And I think it's because she looked pretty. That's why I went for the meeting.
Right.
I was just like, okay.
She's always had that excellence about her.
So I was like, oh, she's gorgeous. She looks nice. Let me go. And she preached a storm that night. And so every now and then I would attend their meetings, but I wasn't committed. I wasn't a member. I don't think anyone ever knew me. But yeah, I'll just walk in every now and then and attend the meetings.
Did those meetings ever serve as a source of conviction for you? And I ask this because, I mean, campus, yes, those were my crazy days too. And there's times, I mean, at the time I was at North Mead Assemblies of God, and there's times where sometimes when you see yourself through the lens of scripture, it would repel me because I was being told off by scripture. And so I would keep away for a season because I knew I was wrong and I wasn't trying to hear it yet. And still trying to justify it. I remember once one of my former Sunday school teachers told me, you're in a wrong relationship. You need to dump this guy today. And I was just so quiet and I failed to do it.
Wow. You know, I avoided church because I knew that I was doing something wrong. But also now I had 2 encounters on campus that made me feel like, you know what, sometimes Christians are just a bit much, right? I went to a meeting and I think I wore a dress above my knees. And this guy took it upon himself to just tell me how I wasn't behaving well. He was shouting at me and he didn't know me like that. And for me, that was me trying to come back to God. So he was focused on my dress, you know, and that dress had tights in it. So it wasn't just the dress, but I just felt like, okay, so do you know what I'm going through? Do you know what I'm battling? So I said, oh, okay, I'll give it another shot. Then I met somebody just by October shop there. And this guy starts to tell me how, you know, you should be ashamed of how you're living your life. Right there, people were watching. And this one, I told him later when I was saved, I said, look, I think you had a good message, but how you went about it wasn't right. This is why I struggled to even come back to church because of conversations with people like you. I told him and said, I'm so sorry, I was wrong and everything. Because every time I would see him talk about God on Facebook, I'm like, really? Now? So I confronted him and we had a conversation. So those 2 encounters made me feel like, okay, even if I come, am I welcome? Even if I say I want to pursue your God, am I welcome to come to that place? And so, but I know now that I know better that we don't leave church because people hurt us. You know, sometimes people think they're punishing God when all they're doing is trying to get back at people who don't even save themselves. So I feel that, you know...
And who don't even remember or recall, sometimes not even aware that they hurt you.
Yes, they're living their best life, you know.
And you're stuck in that moment.
You leave God, you know. And so now that I know what I know that people will make mistakes in correcting us, but it's wise to pick what they're trying to say. So you hear the heart behind the rebuke. There's concern. Maybe they don't know how to say it, but there's concern. So
you work with young people a lot. Does that passion stem from some of the things that you experienced, including what you've just narrated about how we present the gospel and how we package it?
Yes, I do work with a lot of ladies, most of them young professionals and some students. I honestly feel like, you know, there's there's an empty space when it comes to ministering to people in this part of their lives, and then they don't hear it from somebody who's been on this path. So sometimes you tell the girls, abstain, and they're like, but you're going back to your husband. You're telling us to abstain. You don't know my struggle. So I feel that by the grace of God, I have a voice in this area because of places I have been. Yeah. I'm also careful to tell people that, you know, just because I got out alive doesn't mean you will get out alive, because you might go clubbing and die. True. You know, so I'm passionate about young women, but mostly I'm passionate about wholeness. Because without wholeness, there's no telling what we can get ourselves into. You know, when you look at the prodigal son, the moment he lost whose he was now eating with animals. You know, when he couldn't remember that I am a child of a king, he was eating with animals. So even us, when we lose our identity, when we lose our connection with God, you'll be there sleeping in the ruins. Monks are shouting at you and you don't care. You'll be there sleeping with people for money. And even if people say, you know what, she's a sugar baby, you don't care as long as you're getting what you want. So it's important for us to pursue wholeness. And what's wholeness really? You know, the best version God has for me in this season. Not that you're perfect, not that you don't get it wrong, but what's the vision that you should exist in now, in this season?
Right. I'll conclude with wholeness, but I don't know how I forgot to ask you this. Did you experience a Viva on campus?
Yes.
It's something that you said about, you know, in the ruins that made me ask that.
I experienced a Viva, but I used the Kalingalinga route to go
escape.
Home. And the reason I did that is because my dad was going to leave me in the chooks if I misbehaved. So I just said, you know what? My father doesn't tolerate nonsense. Let me go home. So every time there was drama on campus, I'd run away. Because I honestly feel like my parents are not the sort of parents who ignore that you were misbehaving. You know, you're right. You want your student allowance, but is this the way to go about it? So I'd always run away. But one time, I was too late. I couldn't run away. We locked ourselves in the room. And unfortunately, that's the time some girls were taken into the police. Oh, wow. Because apparently they were shouting and insulting the police. Yeah.
Wow. The time I experienced a serious one, there used to be, I don't know what he was at the time, but he was very famous, Mr. Wazakaza Nguni. May his soul rest in peace. He died tragically years later after we were done. But they sent Zambia police and the Red Berets onto campus that day. And I was there by the roadside and we're singing, sheep, sheep, come home, we're afraid. Who are you afraid of? We're afraid of Wazakaza. You know, we're there dancing. And it was so exciting for me. Yeah. Then came the Red Berets and we scampered. You know, the ruins has the common area, right? Yes, and there's glass there. I literally saw this guy run through the glass. Yes. He made a hole through the glass and we're all following after. We found ourselves in the ruins in a room. I think there was 20 of us, packed like sardines. And we literally camped there the whole day. Wow. We had monk sauce that day. That's kapenta for those of you that don't know. But I remember that when you were talking about the ruins. But yeah, I mean, campus.
Yeah, campus. And I think there are people who come onto campus and they're excited that they want to experience the Viva. Right, Kojo comes to campus.
Have you even been to campus without a Viva?
So yeah, so there are all these things. But for me, Vivas, I was just like, nope, my dad will let me sit in there at least 3 days so that I learn my lesson. So I'm not doing it.
We didn't stone cars, though. At least we were quite peaceful. We didn't cause malicious damage to public property. We behaved. But I digress. How did you find wholeness, Perpetual? In the midst of all this, I mean, you had been going to Set Apart, Chi Alpha, still not finding yourself. When did it eventually begin to take form? Okay,
so I only joined Set Apart when I was in 4th year.
Okay.
So a friend of mine said, look, there's a meeting, there's a lady, you know, she's really nice, you have to come. I was like, I don't know. Well, how do you do your meetings? Like, it's just girls. I'm like, I'm not coming. Just girls means drama for me. So I remember they had their first conference, Set Apart that is, and that day of the conference I was hungover, so I didn't make it. right? A couple of months later, I started dating a guy who I really liked. But he treated me so badly to a point where I was basically depressed. So I was looking for something. I don't know what I was looking for, but I was looking for something. I remember calling my friend, say, you said your meetings happen on Saturdays. Then Set Apart was every Saturday.
Okay.
I said, I want to come. She said, oh, no, come. She was at Zika's. She said, come to Zika's, we'll then go to class together. So I left early, I got ready. I went to Set Apart. We were meeting at Lusaka Hotel. It was just a small circle. I think we were about 30 of us.
Okay.
We were just talking, and I remember seeing girls around the room who knew their God. They were speaking of things I'd never heard before. There were mysteries in the room. And I remember looking at them and thinking, if only I could be like one of these people. That wasn't the end. Mom Paswani then came and she started teaching. The moment that woman opened her mouth, I was weeping. I cried throughout the class. You know, people laugh at me at Set Apart because I was the person who was always crying at classes. I wept because it's like she was speaking into everything I was looking answers for. You know, I really just felt like, so God sees me. You know, I'm confused, I don't know myself, I've been suicidal, but here, God is saying something to me. So every meeting was like that for me. And after some months, I gave my life to God and, you know, Set Apart. And that's when my journey started.
It started. Now, how important is the company that we keep?
I think your friends speak into how far you can go in life, what you are able to become. I feel that everybody, according to Psalm 1:1, every one of us should keep good company. Because, you know, there's no telling what you can do. Most times, especially as, anyway, everyone really, the company you pick will speak into the decisions you make, right? I was going to say as girls, no, but everybody. If you've got bad friends, it will reflect in your decisions. And I know some people say, you know, me, I'm the sober one, everybody else. But really your decisions, because these people are constantly pouring into you. So it's important to have friends who look like who you want to become. So I want to be a person who loves God, who is surrounding you. Because you can't love God in isolation amongst drunkards or people who don't believe in your faith or people who tell you to do the exact opposite of what God requires of you. Yes.
So you made that decision in your 4th year?
Yes.
Just as you were,
I think that was
you already
after
on
exams.
after exams. Okay, all right. But I mean, at least you found him. That's the important thing. Exactly, exactly. And at an important stage, if I might add, because now you're literally going out into the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think there's so many opportunities for us to have an encounter with God. And sometimes I believe that breakup was a setup for me to pursue something bigger. If that guy was good to me, you know, everything, I wouldn't have bothered, right? And sometimes we are so focused on the bad things that are happening. Sometimes they're just there to help us see that there's something more. Look this side, try this, you know, go here. And so we mustn't always think of rejection, failure, or some of these bad things that happen as, you know, you being just a person who's got bad luck, or you will never make it, or you never try to seek God on what is happening now. Even when I was going to the club, I believe God would hear my prayers, you know. And I feel like God is always pursuing us. God is always pursuing us to a point where if you really look back on some moments in your life, you had God moments, you just didn't know.
TD Jake says it's only when we turn to God that we realize He's been facing us all along.
Exactly.
And that quote has never left me.
I think that sums it up.
It does.
You know, you see, oh, okay, so you've been here all along.
All along.
That sums it up.
You're now so passionate as well about healthy marriages, building healthy relationships, and it's something that you do with your husband. How did you come into meeting him And just, I mean, just allowing the grace of God to just clean up your life and to transform you into the woman that you are today, that you say, people can't even believe I'm this person now.
Yes. Okay, so when I now started serving in Set Apart, I think that's the first time I saw my husband, but the Lord would not allow us to do anything up until 2 years later. And for me, okay, honestly, the first time I saw him, I'm like, fine guy. Yeah,
Are you hearing that? She had a sight set on you.
Honestly, the first time I saw him, and I was with my friend who invited me to Set Apart. So you know how government complex is? You know, like when you're coming to the front, it's like you're going down, right? And so he was coming down to where we were. I was like, Tina, who's that guy? He's like, that's Pastor Gladys' son. I said, I like him. She said, no, he's got a girlfriend. I said, I like him. I didn't say I'm taking him from anybody.
I just said.
But then afterwards, it's almost as if I didn't see him again, you know. And I believe it's because God was doing a work in my heart, you know. I came to a place now, right before my husband came into my life, where I was like, okay, Lord, I've really messed up this area of my relationships, and I want you. And I feel like sometimes that's why we're not able to do relationships in a healthy way. We desire people more than we desire God. So I came to a place where I was like, okay, Lord, I really want you. Like, I want a relationship with you. And so people from Set Apart sometimes make fun, like the ones we joined with, they were like, it's like you're a crazy person. You know, you were running up and down, just doing whatever needed to be done. But I had such a fire burning in my soul that I couldn't focus on all these things. So when now the Lord started showing me my husband, I said, Lord, please, me, I've got a history with relationships. If this is not you, I don't want it.
Yeah.
You know, and here we are. God did what only He can do.
Married with 3 kids later. Amazing.
Yes, amazing kids.
Yeah. Now, just to wrap it up, you know your camera. I just want you to just really highlight to a young lady, young man as well, really, we're not leaving the men out, on just how important these formative years are against, you know, the bigger picture in life, the decisions that are made now, the things that are done on campus, how those things can affect us and just either propel us or hinder us from the plan that God has for our lives. Yeah.
Okay, so I just really wanted to say that the world will tell you that you're young, you've got time, you can do whatever you want. But when you think about the people that God called, He called them in their very young ages. You think about Mary, the mother of Jesus, think about David, think about the boy Samuel, right? And you might not even be very familiar with the scripture, but what I'm trying to tell you is that you are in your prime years, and the decisions you make now might affect you forever. So I want you to make a decision today to build your personal relationship with God, because it's from that relationship that everything else will flow. I hope you receive grace for your season, because our generation is exposed. Worse off for you people, because everything is online. You're seeing how people are living life. But I hope that you will be able to say no for now to get a better yes. God bless you.
Say no for now to get a better yes. I love that. Thank you so much, Perpetual. It's been a most interesting, exciting, nostalgic conversation. And of course, just filtered through the lens of faith. And I wish you every success in all your endeavors, especially with the young people. You know, we really need voices such as yours in this space to just, you know, make a move for God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
and
for
just reclaim some destinies back.
And we will.
Yeah, we will, absolutely.
Amen. Thank you for having me.
It's an honor. So that's been our episode on surviving, but we say thriving at campus life, because you can absolutely thrive. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you on campus. But like she said, you know, set some boundaries, make that personal decision to get to know Christ, live for Him, pursue your studies as well, and just trust Him to just unfold the life before you. in his time. He makes all things beautiful. This has been Truth and Tea. Remember to tune in on Radio Christian Voice every Monday at 11 a.m. and also look out for the video uploads on our YouTube channels every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Conversations filtered through faith. This has been the Urban Evangelist. Have a blessed week ahead.